Hi, everyone. I'm Robert Waggoner, and I want to welcome you to another World of Lucid Dreaming session on lucid dreaming. This is something I normally do for about an hour each week, the first week of the month, and happy to be here courtesy of Jake Thompson at the worldofluciddreaming.com. Um, I'm going to start out with my presentation and then we'll open it up for questions. So here we go. Um, Sometimes people wonder, well, who are you? And I'm Robert Waggoner. I'm the author of these two books. My first book over here, Lucid Dreaming: Gateway to the Inner Self. It's been translated into a number of languages and is probably in its 18th or 19th printing. Then I have another book, Lucid Dreaming Plain and Simple, which is all the tips and techniques that I wanted to share, along with my co-author, Caroline McCready. And that's another book that I have out there. You can always learn more about me at lucidadvice.com. I want to thank everyone who submitted a lucid dream to our free online magazine, Lucid Dreaming Experience. The summer 2026 issue is now online if you want to go read it. And it's a kind of a special issue because the theme of the issue and all the articles in this issue are about lucid dreams of the deceased. And so a lot of us become lucidly aware when we see a deceased dream figure because we think, wait a second, grandma passed away 10 years ago. This has to be a dream. And we oftentimes at that moment become lucidly aware. Sometimes we don't become lucid. Sometimes we recognize grandma and just go give her a hug and just go along with whatever happens. But oftentimes we do technically become lucid. We realize within a dream that we're dreaming and we take it from there. So again, thanks for everyone who submitted a lucid dream to the magazine. My co-editor, Lucy Gillis, and I really appreciate that. So, so thinking of that magazine about deceased dream figures just made me want to talk a little bit about lucidly investigating dream figures altogether, because this is really a big, big topic. And it's a big topic because of one kind of important psychological or sociological aspect of being a human, which is called socialization. So how do we explain how lucid dreamers behave in a lucid dream towards dream figure? And oftentimes at the very beginning, it has to do with socialization. And sociology.org defines socialization as the lifelong process through which people learn and internalize the cultural norms, values, attitudes, and behaviors considered appropriate in their society. This complex process transforms humans from biological beings into social actors capable of participating meaningfully in their cultural context. So fundamentally, socialization is that process that we learn as children growing up on how to relate to others, how to relate to the culture, how to relate to other people, how to interpret and work within that social interaction range. So all of us, by just virtue of growing up, develop a socialization scheme or a socialization mindset. And oftentimes you'll see that expressed in our lucid dreams. So here's what you'll notice in a lot of lucid dreams. You'll read the lucid dream report and you'll find that the lucid dreamer turns to the other dream figures there, sometimes anonymous ones that they've never seen before, and they'll say, "Do you know this is a dream?" Or, "Hey, look, everyone, I can fly." So in those kind of interactions, the lucid dreamer is apparently working off an assumption that these dream figures exist within the lucid dream, and also that these dream figures have their own awareness and their own appreciation for what it is that the lucid dreamer is doing. But the fundamental thing is we tend to relate to dream figures. We tend to relate to our surroundings. And normally in a surrounding, if there's a dream figure, that's where we go. We are kind of creatures of habit in that way. Now, the beautiful thing that you see in all of this is because of this socialization process, it's basically automatic, and it connects in the lucid dream within the lucid dream in that moment. So so your socialization will connect to your beliefs in that moment. Now now sometimes in a lucid dream you can stop and go, wait a second. I've been talking to that dream figure, but now I realize that dream figure might just be a projection of my own mind, might be a dream symbol or something like that. And so you can stop the automatic process and examine that belief and decide not to go along with it. You can, in effect, change your mindset in that moment. So you can escape your mindset. You can flip your mindset and go, wait a second. I've been talking to these dream figures, and now I realize that they exist just as dream figures. And so I'm going to let that go and do something else. But also, sometimes along the way, your beliefs about dream figures will begin to change. And we'll get into that just here in a bit. But again, the important thing is to realize oftentimes at the beginning of lucid dreaming, we just relate to dream figures based on socialization. Oh, there's another figure. Well, I have to do the polite thing and interact with them. And that's what we do. Now, where this gets a little bit tricky is when the unexpected occurs. And because oftentimes in lucid dreams, we come to see that our expectations and beliefs help to create the experience that we then experience. But along the way, unexpected things will happen. And in my first book, I tell the story of something that happened to me, probably in my first 5 years of lucid dreaming. Um, I became lucidly aware and looked down and saw that there was a big crowd. I don't know what for, but just imagine a big crowd of people. And because I was lucidly aware and flying, I decided, just for the fun of it, that I would fly down and knock off the hat of each dream figure that had a hat on. So I'd swoop down, knock off a hat, swoop down again, knock off another hat. And I kept doing this until suddenly, when I was swooping down to knock off a hat, suddenly a hand came up from the crowd and grabbed me mid-flight and held on to me. And it took me a few seconds to get away. But after that unexpected interaction, I began to think, maybe all dream figures are not projections of my mind. Or maybe some dream figures have their own intent, their own independent agency. And after that, I began to realize that on some occasions in a lucid dream, we're not interacting with basically a dream symbol or a projection of our mind. We're acting with an independent agent. And how can you tell an independent agent? Well, oftentimes they have their own independent agency. They're going to do what they want to do. So, for example, one time I was lucidly aware in a library, asked the various dream figures I would meet, "Hey, do you want to go flying with me?" And finally, the first groups, they all said no, 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 no. And finally, I get to the back of the library, and there's a young woman reading a book very intently. And I ask her, "Would you like to go flying with me?" And she puts down her book and says, "Sure." And the hilarious thing was, she grabbed me and took me flying. And then she stopped on top of the library to show me something that was at the very bottom of the library, which was a yantra, which was a symbolically expressed mantra form. So again, this was something totally independent. She flew me, I didn't fly her. Also, she showed me something, and it was something outside of my own thinking at the time. Also, we see different types of unexpected dream figures sometimes when we deal with deceased dream figures. Because sometimes these deceased dream figures will tell you something about a future event or something that they want you to be aware of that you don't even have any conscious knowing about, that they want you to be aware that something's happening behind the scenes and you better prepare yourself for. But on a conscious level, you have no comprehension of that. So sometimes deceased dream figures are also very interesting. Is that deceased dream figure a projection of my mind? Well, I wouldn't call it that necessarily because it seems to know things that are outside of my mind. So therefore, there's something more going on there. And finally, you'll have this unexpected encounters with dream figures sometimes when you have what I would call special dream figures. Normally, in my experience, whenever I interact with a lucid dream figure that's wearing a robe, and I've seen various colors of robes and all, but normally a robed dream figure is oftentimes one that's very aware and sometimes will explain things to me. One even told me a parable from Buddhism one time. He was a guy wearing a deep red Buddhist robe, and he and I began to talk in the lucid dream. And then he asked me if I had ever heard of the parable of of the person who was hit with two arrows. And and I said, no, I never heard about that. And he explained this parable to me. And when I woke up, I immediately searched for the parable of the two arrows and realized that, oh, this is a commonly known Buddhist parable about the nature of things. So again, there's sometimes special figures, and even special figures can be not human figures. You might interact with a ball of light, or you might interact with a geometric shape composed of light. Again, sometimes special figures can mean a lot of different things. So I bring this up because it's important as a lucid dreamer to examine your beliefs. Naively, at the beginning, we might just have the thing that all dream figures are real. And that's why we're talking to them and, oh, let me show you this. And, oh, I'm going to explain that. Oftentimes, our belief at that moment is all dream figures are as real as we are. And so therefore, we relate to them much as we relate to people in our everyday world. Then sometimes we think that we're making progress and we decide that no, all dream figures are symbols. They're my own projected mental energy out there for me to relate to. Now, I know that seems the case in many cases, but does it seem the case in all cases? Because if it seems the case in all cases, then how do we explain deceased dream figures who know something outside of our own knowing? How can we say that's our own projected mental energy when the information is outside of our own knowing? So what you begin to see after a while is dream figures are complex because they vary in behavior. They seem to vary in awareness and so much more responsiveness, curiosity, intent, all sorts of ways dream figures vary. And you also see that dream figures vary because sometimes we're dealing with dream figure family members. Sometimes they're dream figures of friends. Sometimes they're dream figures of celebrities. Sometimes dream figures of strangers that we've never met before. And sometimes they're even the deceased or beings of light or robed dream figures or something else. So the complexity of dream figures is what makes this such an interesting area. Now, the completely unexpected occurred to me as I talk about in my first book, Lucid Dreaming Gateway to the Inner Self, when I began to ignore the dream figures and would ask a question of my unconscious mind. And that's when a responsive, non-visible inner awareness began to reply. Sometimes it would reply in a verbal manner. I would hear the words in the lucid dream. Sometimes it would reply by changing what I visually was seeing in the lucid dream. So this made me really surprised when I realized that, oh, there's something that seems to have even greater awareness and greater creativity than some of these special dream figures. There's this inner awareness that you can engage. And it seems to fundamentally seek to educate and help the lucid dreamer grow. So that also brings up a question. If a responsive, non-visible inner awareness exists, then whose energy is creating the dream and the dream figures? If there's something more creative than I in the lucid dream, this non-visible inner awareness, then then where does the energy come from? Because a lot of times we like to think of things as our own mental projections. Well, what if this inner awareness has its own projections? And oftentimes, in response to my questions in lucid dreams, it would project an answer out there. Well, could it also project a dream figure into my lucid dream that I'd have to engage with? So, again, this becomes a curious, interesting area. So, here's kind of my conclusion with all of this is you have to realize that you've been socialized to relate to figures in a certain way. And so you might want to examine your socialization within a lucid dream. Also, as you begin to engage dream figures, I want you to take special note of the unexpected dream figures because those are the ones that helped me kind of broaden my mindset. Sometimes they brought out something that really made me think about things. And finally, my final conclusion is that actually the unconscious appears the most amazing, the more amazing and deeper than conscious awareness. And so when you become lucidly aware, you have to understand that you're starting to engage the unconscious in a new way. And because of that, you really want to realize that you're kind of venturing into new territory. So so with that, we'll open it up for questions. I'm going to put this down, and I see Mark has his hand up. So Mark, are you unmuted? Yep.
I am unmuted, yes.
Okay, go for it.
Hey, welcome. I'm back after kind of a long absence here for a few months. Couldn't be more appropriate, though. I had my first lucid dream in over a year just recently. Unfortunately, it was May 26th, after turning in deceased, deceased family members for this latest newsletter. I kind of need your help because, and any of the participants who've experienced anything like this, my deceased sister and my deceased father were both in the dream, and I became lucid, which I was very glad, but I used meme, as you have taught us, and I became stable. And I asked my sister, would you agree to be my dream guide going forward? And she very matter-of-factly, by the way, we're in this house that is kind of like a house where we used to live, but it's not. It's unfamiliar. She's in one room, and I ask her this question, and she says yes. That was made me very happy. Prior to her departing this planet, we had some very, very deep discussions around everything, philosophical, spiritual, theological. And I simply told her, if there's any way when you get the answers to the eternal questions that you will have before me, let me know. And she told me I will. This is when she's in a terminal state. And we had that discussion. So she's there. I turn and look into the entryway to this house. My dad is standing there. And I thought again, luckily I'm lucid and I'm stable. And I said, Dad, well, I called him Pop. He's German, Papa. So I called him Pop. We all called him that. I said, could you tell me something important, something I need to know? Can you share something with me? And I looked back at his face, but his face was not there. It was simply almost a churning I would say kaleidoscope, but there was no color or imagery in it. It was just a turning symbolic face. And I didn't quite know what to take from that. There was no verbal interaction at all, just that turning of the non-existent now face. And then I woke up. And I was just ecstatic because I'd had a stable lucid dream after all this time. And two of my family members were there, and my dear sister has agreed now to be my dream guide going forward. What am I to make of this?
Yeah, Mark, those are wonderful questions. So just a sec here. I just want to. Hi, Carol. Would you mute yourself, please? Here we go. I'll mute you. There you go. Um, so so what does one make of it? Well, you know, all of us are going to interpret this according to our own kind of belief system and mindset. And so I think that's an important thing to realize. Uh, what I would say is that I would look forward to the next few months, and hopefully your sister will appear, and you'll realize, oh, this is a dream, or you'll find her hand in some respect behind the scenes helping things come, helping your awareness come to lucidity. So, it's interesting though about the father. Now, sometimes we associate. Our associations are like mental, like, oh, if I see Jill, then I'm going to see Bob because Bob is married to Jill. They're connected. But oh, if I see one deceased family member, then oh, obviously that implies another deceased family member, and there's Pops. So is Pops there in the same way that the sister is, or is Pops there as just a mental association that you connect with your sister? That's a little bit hard to know. I but I do find that really interesting to think about.
Have you seen N3 lately?
What do you mean?
Your N3, have you
Oh,
seen?
no, no. Yeah. So, just to help other people understand, one time I became lucidly aware when I found myself driving through New Mexico at night, and I thought, wait a second, I don't live in New Mexico, and all. So I let go of the wheel of the car, of the dream car, and it crashed, and I flew and landed in a mountain stream. And I thought about flying up to the stars, but then I thought, why do I want to go to all that trouble? So I shouted out, "Hey, Dream, pull me up," or "Hey, stars, pull me up." And suddenly a hand reached down, grabbed my arm, and started pulling me up into the night sky. And eventually I saw that it was a young woman. And eventually we stop, and she, with her finger, creates three lines to kind of make a three-dimensional space in the darkness. And at that moment, I remember asking her, "What's your name?" And she told me N, like the letter N, three. And that really surprised me. Now, since that time, I have had other occasions where, again, a woman told me that they were always in the dream and they're watching and able to help. And that's also what this dream figure N3 said to me. And I asked her, what are you doing? And she said, you asked for help and I'm helping you. And then she told me that she was always there in the dream state to help me whenever I needed. So again, it just shows us, the kind of this curious nature of dream figures.
Well, thank you. And I'll just close then by saying I appreciate any guidance. Those of you who are also here listening, I hope you have good interactions with any deceased family. This was nothing but positive. I have two others that at one point I'd asked the dream, who should be my dream guides? And I got five responses. Four of the five are deceased family members. And so all I can say is they were not in any way something to fear. It was not in any way anything but positive. And I'm looking forward, hopefully, to getting, again, more guidance from them going into the future.
Oh, well, great, great, Mark. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, we're going to go next to, I see Ed is up here next. Ed, we're going to have you go. Yeah,
Okay, thank you. Good to see you again, Robert.
yeah, thanks.
Um, I just need some kind of help understanding some. I was in a dream and I was like in a room with some things, and then I remembered, okay, I'm going to become lucid. So in that moment, I became lucid. Everything cleared up, and I was able to see everything very clearly and consciously realizing I was dreaming. And then it's like this door opened up to the side, sometimes like you describe, and I got went through the door and I started traveling through space. And I saw these mathematical equations passing me by. And I ended up going into this house. And then as I was walking down the hallway of the house, I was looking in the bedrooms and I could see people in their beds, but as like sacks of potato, like they were in their astral bodies. So then I kept walking and I would walk into this one bedroom and there was this one man. There's like another person in the bed, maybe his wife. She looked like a sack of potatoes. I looked at him. He looked like a regular person. And I could see his face and his eyes. And then he looked at me and he says, "Are you out of your body too?" And I'm sitting here thinking I'm in a lucid dream. And then he comes over and we start talking and kind of going through some different exercises about floating and moving around and sharing stories. And still to this day, I don't know if I was out of body or in a lucid dream.
Right. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to tell. And I'll tell you from my experience, the times I can't tell is when I don't remember how I became aware of dreaming while in the dream. I just like, boom, I'm aware. And I remember one time I found myself in what I thought was a lucid dream, but because I was aware. And across from me was a Native American man talking to me, and he kept going on and on and on for about 10 minutes, and with this spiritual discussion. And at the very end, I said, "Boy, this is a very stable lucid dream." And he looked at me and said, "This is not a lucid dream." So sometimes we carry our assumptions with us, but if you don't remember realizing within a dream that you were dreaming, you might be in a different kind of version, like an OBE or something.
So a lucid dream is sort of a consciousness, no matter where you are.
Well, so a lucid dream is so the fundamental characteristic is you realize within a dream you're dreaming. And so normally you can remember something that occurred at the first that you saw a movie star walking down your street and thought, wait a second, how can that be? Oh, this is a dream. And you remember that moment that there was a dream, and then suddenly you moved into a lucid dream because you knew that, oh, this is too weird. This has to be a dream. But there's other times where we find ourselves suddenly aware within what seems to be a dream, but there was no prompting event. There was no fundamental event where our mind shifted. It was just we started from the very get-go with this kind of awareness. Those are the ones where sometimes it seems like we might be in a different state of awareness.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Interesting. Well, great. Nathaniel, you're up next, and then we'll get to some of the chat room questions. Hi there.
Awesome. Nice to meet you, Robert.
Yeah, good to meet you.
I've only known that you've existed for maybe 4 or 5 months and have been so grateful to tune into these calls. And it seems like such a great community. I've been lucid dreaming since I was 8 years old. And it's interesting since getting into your work and seeing all that, how often death and lucid dreaming have these interactions. And basically, it was when my mom passed away and there was a lightning storm, and I felt her kiss me on my cheek when the lightning struck super close. And that night, I had my first lucid dream, which was full, stable, fully aware. I'm literally in this at some party in some mansion, but they're all skeletons in suits. And I was like, what the heck? I thought I just went to sleep. What's going on? And I was fully lucid. So I just walked outside and sat in this backyard and just looked around. I'm like, this is so real. It was incredible. 8 years old. I'm 36 now and have been really going at it, and your work has exponentially accelerated all kinds of things. So I just thank you for that. And this topic specifically, speaking to the entire space of the dream as it, as if it's its own intelligence, and just assuming everything that's kind of projected into the space kind of is, I'm treating it as like a collaboration between my maybe ego or sense of self and then my unconscious and whatever else, right? So there's like this infinite thing. So thank you. It's been beautiful. And just last week, I was lucid in the dream, and I went to bed that night knowing I wanted to practice this. And for the second time ever in my entire life, did I have the most lucid sort of interaction with what was clearly a dream guide. I call him the note taker. He had a little clipboard and everything. But the best part was, as soon as I'm lucid, I'm like, okay, dream, I'd like to, do the thing now where I'm going to talk to you directly, and let's see, I want to build this muscle. And as soon as I say that, I'm also walking over to this group of people. So I'm like, great, I'll go talk to somebody. I walk past somebody along the way. I'm like, hey, I'd love to talk to you. He's like, no, leave me alone. He just kept walking. He wasn't interested at all. And then I get to the group of people, and I look at someone who's willing to engage, and I'm like, hey, and as soon as I do this note taker walks out and is like, hey, so I guess you're ready to do that now. You can just talk to me directly. So I either kind of projected or created some sort of refined version of, this relationship to talk to it. So I'm excited to keep working with him, but I'm curious, I guess, what would you ask him, or what's a good next move as far as, it feels like such a literal connection point now. So I want to make the most of it.
Yeah, so that's great, and really really glad to hear that your lucid dreaming is moving along. One thing that I think is just a good kind of base question for anyone to ask of their inner awareness is, show me something important for me to know, or tell me something important for me to know, or show me the next steps in my development, or something like that. So something that's kind of a little bit future oriented and kind of the next steps and all, because sometimes you'll get something that's really can be quite powerful, and that it all depends. Now the issue is, sometimes it's literal, sometimes it's symbolic, and if it's symbolic, you might want to ask a follow-up question like, how am I to understand that, or what's the importance of this, or whatever it is to move it along. That's what I would say would probably be a good way of approaching things. I would also say that as you get more and more comfortable with this inner awareness, or the conscious unconscious, what I began to do was to explore its depths. And so I would ask to experience concepts like, let me experience,
I've heard some of these,
and let me experience the energy of the universe, and stuff like that. So sometimes those kind of conceptual explorations are so far out, but um, you have to go along with it. You just have to go, okay, I know this is this is a totally bizarre sensation, but I'm just going to go with it for as long as I can stand it. So don't be surprised if suddenly, you're becoming the concept, becoming the idea, and having the experience. But yeah, I would just see kind of where it takes you, and where you want to take it from there. Everybody's on their own journey, and but I think you've come a long way, in as much as you kind of understand already that in many respects the lucid dream is a co-creation of what some people would call the unconscious psyche and the conscious self, interacting. So lucid dreaming isn't about control. It's really about more aware relating, and kind of understanding that relationship.
Thank you. It's felt like there's also been a huge correlation between me already knowing that the guidance I could get is stuff I'm already sitting with, like, oh, I should also just do the things I know I should be doing with my life, etc. And I've actually done those things, so now I can get something I can't see. So
Good.
looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
Okay. I'm going to go to the chat room, and then we'll get to Tanya. So Coral asked, I'm talking with someone who has nightmares multiple times per week and is open to hearing about lucid dreaming from me. I've already mentioned the idea of asking threatening dream figures why they are there. I've also mentioned doing something different in the dream once lucid. This person has already begun pausing the dream but is currently stuck there. I have presented the idea that a dreamer may feel unable to do things in the dream if they believe they cannot do those things. Do you know of other techniques for addressing chronic nightmares via lucid dreams? So, back in 1982, there was a study by psychotherapist Gordon Halliday in Ohio. Uh, the idea of lucid dreaming had just emerged 2 years earlier through the work of Stephen LaBerge and also Keith Hearn in England. But what that therapist did, Gordon Halliday, he asked his clients who had recurring nightmares from post-traumatic stress disorder to just change one thing when they became lucidly aware in the recurring nightmare. And so that week, both of his clients were able to become lucidly aware. They just changed one very benign thing in the lucid dream, which was the recurring nightmare. And after that, spontaneously, their nightmare ceased. And so sometimes that can be that simple. Now, when it comes to threatening dream figures, in my second book, Lucid Dreaming, Plain and Simple, I share how the way that I would approach it is send threatening dream figures what they lack. If they're full of anger, send them love. If they feel neglected, give them attention. Whatever it is they lack, give it to them. Don't don't fight them. Don't run away. Find out what it is they need and give it to them. And what you'll find is if you give an angry dream figure more and more love and compassion and understanding, it'll begin to shrink and it'll become less threatening. It'll become less aggressive. And if you fully and utterly give it, love, compassion, understanding, then normally it'll burst into light and that light energy will return to you because it's your projected mental energy. So that's what I would encourage is instead of fight, instead of flight, send the threatening dream figure what it needs. Also asking the threatening dream figure, who are you? And also sometimes when you hear, I'm your fear of success, you go, oh crap, here's my fear of success externalized. Or it might be whatever it is, fear of failure. I don't know what it is. But by asking an open-ended question, oftentimes that helps. So good luck with that.
Thank you.
Paul brings up something which is the parable of the two arrows, which was taught to me by a dream figure in a lucid dream. Uh, Paul shares what that's all about. It's really a beautiful parable. I encourage everyone to Google search that. It's really incredible. Um, so, and Michael shares that he's had some prophetic lucid dreams about having surgery, and now it seems like that's going to occur. Um, and also had some other lucid dreams from various events years ago. So, Tanya, we're going up to you. So here we go. Hi there.
I have two questions. One, I finally finished both of your books, and the last chapter of the second book, Living Lucidly, I think was the title, really spoke to me. And while I loved all the content of the other stuff, this just, I don't know, takes things in a very big direction. And so I'm asking, do you have plans for another book that perhaps is on living lucidly? And if not, I'm requesting if you would please
Oh, great.
address.
Yeah, so thank you. That's very kind. And to kind of let people know that in the second book, Lucid Dreaming, Plain and Simple, uh, I have a technique that anyone can use. You don't have to be a lucid dreamer, but it's using your mind technique to show yourself how you participate in what you're experiencing, that your mental energy gets projected out there and reflected back to you. And so that's really a fundamentally important thing, I think, about lucid dreaming. In lucid dreaming, we realize, if I believe it's impossible to fly through that wall, it becomes impossible. I'll bounce right off of it, even though it's made out of dream stuff. But what we do when we start to live lucidly is we take those observations, those realizations, and move them into the waking world, and we begin to use them to deal with difficult issues in our own waking life. And so like here's an example. Let's say in your waking life you have somebody that you just can't stand. They're mean, nasty, angry people. Okay. You don't even want to be around them. If you see them coming in the door, you go out the other door. That's how you relate to them in the waking world. So if I was a lucid dreamer and saw how a dream figure who is full of anger changed when I sent it love, understanding, and compassion, I'll tell you, in your next experience with that person, that in the waking world, when they come through the door, begin sending them love, compassion, understanding. Just from your heart, just send them love, compassion, understanding. No matter what they say, just send them love, compassion, understanding. And I'll tell you, within 2 or 3 minutes, you'll see this profound change come over them. And the anger and the hatred and the negative whatever energies suddenly will start to disappear. And sometimes they'll look at you and they'll say, I feel so strange or whatever. It's really incredible. It's really incredible. But again, that's what I call lucid living, where we take the realizations from lucid dreaming, bring it into the waking world, and see what effects it has on our waking world experiences.
So, any plan for a book just on
You
that?
know, yeah, thank you, Tanya. I do plan to write a third book, and I haven't figured that out. I'll probably talk more about lucid living in the third book, but I haven't got to the point now where I'm sitting down at the typewriter doing that. So,
Well, my other question was prompted by, I think, a comment you made to Ed in your dream where you said, "Oh, my dream is stable. This is a stable lucid dream." And the Native American guy said, "Mm-mm, this isn't
yeah.
necessarily a lucid dream." So I'm wondering if that conversation went any further, and if so, if you'd be willing to share any of that.
Well, so actually, throughout my life, I've had Native Americans appear and talk to me, and i- in my family lineage, we're part Native American in a genetic sense, a small part, but but yeah, it's normally these are spiritual conversations. You know, sometimes they're about the sacredness of life. Sometimes they're about working with energy, and so it varies. It varies. But I do remember one time though. I was with there were a number of Native American people talking to me, and I remember one time in a different experience, one of the Native American gentlemen told me that I needed to get the cotton out of my ears to totally understand them because I asked a question. It must not have been a very good question. It's probably something they'd already explained, but I just wasn't sharp enough to fathom, and that's when he encouraged me to get the cotton out of my ears. So. So, so anyway, so yeah, when you have those experiences, though, it really makes you realize that, on deeper levels, sometimes we get information and sometimes we get ideas, and sometimes um, our our spiritual life just isn't this waking world. It's also inner world as well.
Thanks.
Thanks, Tanya. Anything else? No. Okay. Rob and Eileen. I assume this is Eileen. Hi there.
Yes, hi. Thank you for these offerings, Robert. It's always a pleasure to
Sure.
be here. So my question is, I've had the experience that you shared in your talk of, getting lucid in a dream and then going around announcing to dream figures that this is a dream and it's my dream, etc. But recently, like just in the last month, even though I've been doing this, dream practice for many years and dream journaling, etc., it had never occurred to me that I've never had the experience of a dream figure coming up to me in the dream and saying, "Hey, this is a dream." And it really struck me, and it was actually just in the last month, so it's just really great that you're talking about dream figures. I was like, this is just so strange that it has never happened. And, if it had happened, if it would happen, it would obviously be a really great thing because it could be such a lucid dream trigger, right? It would be like, oh, yeah, this is a dream, or reality check or whatever. And then it also occurred to me that, in all the dream books that I've read and workshops, et cetera, I've never heard anyone say that they've had a dream figure come up and tell them it's a dream. So in any case, my question is, it just doesn't seem to happen. It doesn't seem to be only my experience. And I was really wondering why you think, I was just wondering about your thoughts about this. It's like, why doesn't it happen? Whatever the dream figure might be, whether it's a projection of my unconscious or an independent agent, why isn't it that we don't get triggered, that we're dreaming by dream figures?
Right. So so oftentimes we don't get triggered because the socialization process. Sometimes I've noticed this when people send in dream reports. It's kind of like they're socialized to focus on themselves. Don't look at the homeless guy over, sitting against the wall. Don't talk to strangers, and they just keep going. They're like in this tunnel of kind of modern society where you don't engage others directly unless you already know them and they're pre-approved and all that kind of stuff. So I think for some people that's a little bit of it. Other times, we're just on autopilot. I was doing one of my 30-day online workshops, and a woman from Germany was part of it. And the first week, we're talking about dream signs and various things that would prompt you into lucid awareness and all. And so what's happening that night, she's driving down the Autobahn and a truck comes by, and on the side of the truck is lucid dreaming. What a great way to become aware of dreaming, and it was kind of in her mind, she interpreted it as an advertisement. And she said in the dream experience, she just got angry driving down the Autobahn. Oh, now they've commercialized lucid dreaming too. And all. So,
Yeah.
so again, we all have our habitual ways of thinking, our habitual ways of interpreting things, and sometimes that's the beauty of dreaming. Sometimes it'll reflect that back to us and give us some insight. But a lot of it fundamentally gets down to mindfulness. We love to think that we're very mindful, aware people, but I want to tell you something. We are not very mindful and not very aware. We kind of go along and don't critically examine things. We don't think about things very differently. And part of the reason is because we're taught that out there has nothing to do with our thinking, nothing to do with our mind, our emotional energies, our expectations. We have separated these two, and in such a profound way that outside experience doesn't have anything to do with me, and we just keep on rolling. So again, that's why I was glad that Tanya brought up what she did. And in the last chapter of my second book is a technique that anyone can use to see how outside experience is actually connected with you, that you're energetically connected with what you're experiencing. So anyway, that's my long answer to a wonderful question. So
Thank you.
thanks, Eileen. That's great. And everyone likes the Chagall painting above your fireplace there. That's a good one. Okay, Ed, you're up next.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to Tanya's idea about bringing lucidity into your everyday life. that reminded me of an experience where I was just getting to know my guardian angel. Now, I don't know if the dream, the dream supervisor is the guardian angel. I still think so, but I'm not sure yet. So I had a business meeting into a restaurant and I was going to go meet a man there. I arrived a little early, so I said, Guardian Angel, is there anything I need to know? Anything I need to think about before I start this meeting? And I heard in the back of my mind, collar, fix. And I went, collar, fix. So I reached up and my collar was folded inside my shirt and I pulled it out and I just kind of like, where did, uh, it's like, I didn't even know, but there was a consciousness inside of me that knew my collar was out of place.
Right.
And so I'm thinking we can still talk with our dream figures in real life.
Right, right. Exactly. So, so again, it shows us that one of our issues is that when we think of ourselves, we just think of the ego and the conscious self. But when Ed expresses his experience, all of a sudden you realize, there actually might be room for the larger Ed or Ed's inner awareness to also be part of that you. And when Ed reaches out to it, like kind of like, what do you have to say to me? Collar, fix, or then all of a sudden we get good advice. Um, I think I've shared how one time I was meditating in the middle of the afternoon, and I got down so deep I could feel my inner self there. And so I reached out with an open-ended question: Hey, inner self, what do you have to say to me? And it told me that it wanted me to send $10,000 to my friend Paul back in my hometown. And I thought, what? And because, I'm sitting there in a chair in the middle of my living room and I'm physically awake, but I came out of that because that was just so odd. Next day, meditating again. Now I feel the energy of my inner self plus the energy of my friend Paul's deceased mother. And I reach out with my open-ended question, what do you have to say to me? And I hear, we want you to send $10,000 to your friend Paul back in your hometown. And I think, oh my gosh, I come out of that. I tell my wife says, well, let's send Paul a check for $1,000, tell him we're his friends, we'll help him out if he needs help. 4 days later, I assume when he got the check, he calls me up, and at first he's so emotional I can't understand him. Then he tells me that a week earlier he'd gone to his mom's gravesite and yelled at it. If somebody didn't help him, he was going to kill himself. And I said, Paul, what's going on? And he said, I need $10,000 to put a disabled bathroom on my house. He says, you don't realize this, but 3 months ago, my dad slipped in the bathroom and broke his hip. And now he's at a nursing home where they say they're going to teach him how to walk again, but they're doing nothing. He'll never walk again, and he'll die in this crappy nursing home. And so we sent him the money. He put on the disabled bathroom. The state of Kansas gave 40 hours of nursing care a week, and his dad lived with him for 6.5 years. At the end of it, his friends at work called him Saint Paul because he could deal with anything. I mean, he was just unflustered by every experience. But again, so when I talk about that in a lucid dream we can interact with this inner awareness, it can also occur in the waking state, and it can be quite shocking. And so this is what I love is kind of when a lucid dream is kind of the integration of the conscious and unconscious beginning to integrate, at least, on some level. But when lucid living is when you start to bring that into the waking state where now you're a little bit more engaged with your unconscious. And when it gives you that little impulse, that little spontaneous idea, you don't blow it off or your ego doesn't say, oh, that's stupid, fix color or color fix, what's that? Instead you run with it. And oftentimes probably 60, 70% of the time, you see the brilliance of it, which was outside of your knowing. 30 or 40% of the time, you go, okay, I did that. I'm not seeing the bells and whistles, but maybe this had some bigger result than I'm aware of. So, yeah. Anyway, Ed, keep on keeping on. That's a great story. Okay, Gabriel, we're going to go with you. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi there.
Um, it was thanks to Fur that I've discovered that these meetings are on, and I hope to come to them regularly. I did your IONS course a few years ago, and I've been plodding away trying to get lucid. I've had a few glimpses, they haven't lasted very long, but I've really had a very dry period for the last 2 years. Now, I realize that through lucidity, I see the potential and I'm really, really excited and enthusiastic about it, but I don't seem to be able to connect. I realize that through lucid dreaming, your higher self can guide you and communicate with you in some way. So what could be the reasons why, if I'm so willing to participate and open to participate, I've got so much problems connecting?
Right. Um, you know, so here's what I find. Sometimes in my workshops, people get the emotional energy, which is what they need to get on the horse and get riding. And when the workshop ends and the emotional energy ends, well, a month or two later, it just doesn't have as much energy behind it, and so things kind of peter off. But one thing that I would say is that there is a compromise position that you might want to take. And I've seen some people take this to incredible good results. But basically, it's dream incubation. And that's what I call lucid dreaming light, like LITE, like, yogurt is yogurt light because it has half the calories. So the great thing about dream incubation is you can do it whenever you want. It doesn't require you to become lucidly aware. But what it does require you to do is to make a simple request to the dreaming self, to the dreaming, and then do a good job of recalling your dreams and then connect the dreams back to the question that you had. So like a simple lucid dream incubation might be, tonight in my dreams, show me one simple thing I can do to improve my health. And just repeat that over and over in your mind. Tonight in my dreams, show me one simple thing I can do to improve my health. And then that night, look at the next morning, look at your dreams and how they connect to that. And then oftentimes you might see, oh, there's right there in that dream is something, one simple thing I can do. And as you begin to realize that, oh, I'm engaging my inner awareness through dream incubation, oftentimes it's like a lucid dream, except technically you're not consciously aware. You're sending the energy before you go to sleep, and then you're getting the response in your dream reports in the morning. So yeah, that's how I think I would approach it because you're right. Not everybody, starts a lucid dreaming practice to where they have one or two or three lucid dreams a month, and they're moving along. For some people, it's for whatever reason, it's just a little bit more difficult. But dream incubation, anyone can do it, and sometimes the results are phenomenal.
I will follow that. Thank you. Let you know
Okay.
next month if something happens. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Great. Great. Thanks, Gabriel. Let me look in the thing here. Um, Nathaniel asked, do you also experience the void space that can be right outside the boundaries of a dream scene you are in? And so, yeah, in my first book, I talk about the void or the gray space. For people who aren't familiar with it, uh, you're in a lucid dream, everything's going along, and then boom, it's like the dream scene disappears, and you're in this sparkling gray or black void. And you can hang out there for a long while if you don't mind. And when I've hung out there for a long, long time, then I've eventually watched the beginning of a new lucid dream. A tree pops up over here, a house pops up over there, a hillside over there, and all of a sudden I'm just watching the birth of a dream. Most of us become aware of dreaming while in the midst of the dream, but when you have the void experience, if you hang on for long enough time, you can watch a new dream scene appear. when I think of the void, this sparkling black light, whatever, I think of it as unexpressed mental energy, that it's unexpressed mental energy. And then finally, when it coalesces into a tree, a house, a hill, then we begin to relate to it. But in the void state, it's unexpressed. So Andre or Andrij, you're up next. You'll have to unmute yourself. Sorry. Yeah.
Right. Thank you so
Okay.
much, Robert.
Perfect. No problem.
I'm so happy to be here today. First of all, I want to say a great thank you for your help. Work has been really helpful. I was in your workshop in September, and you talked about this technique of setting an intention before sleep to express feelings.
Right.
And okay, so I've been doing that for a while. It had a really, really positive effect. And I want to go deeper. So I have this question. So, so I have a hard time recalling my dreams. And after a while, I've discovered that a big reason for that is well, first of all, the dreams are really negative most of the time, and there's a lot of self-hate and sort of a lot of guilt and all that. And I was wondering, I couldn't really figure out how to approach it with that technique. It worked in some cases, but it didn't work, or it doesn't work, or it doesn't seem to work for this particular one, which is such a really big thing. And so I can't record dreams very often. It's like a really painful experience for me. And I was wondering if you could advise something about that.
Right. Okay. So just so everyone understands, um, through lucid dreaming and working with dreams, I came up with this technique I call the dream resolution technique. And the beautiful thing about this technique is that you don't even have to recall dreams to use it, because occasionally you'll meet people who are in, kind of real distress, and they're not very good at dream recall, and there's no chance they're going to become a lucid dreamer because, they can barely even recall their dreams. But what I suggest to people is this: uh, for 30 days, every night before you go to sleep, you do this one thing. You say to yourself, tonight in my dreams, I'll allow myself to fully express my feelings, but in such a way that no one is harmed and for everyone's best good. And so you just keep repeating that. Tonight in my dreams, I'll allow myself to fully express my feelings, but in such a way that no one is harmed and for everyone's best good. And I've met people who've used this technique for 30 days and they really have some incredible transformations. And why are things being transformed? In my viewpoint, it's because for the first time, they're being able to fully express their feelings in such a way that they don't have to express it in the waking world, and which causes a bunch of chaos and trouble and hassles and all that kind of stuff. So if I'm understanding, is it Andrij?
Yeah, you call me Andy. It's okay.
Andy. Okay. Well, so if I understand what you're asking, Andy, is could you use this to help with your dream recall? Is that what you're saying?
Essentially, yes. Yes, definitely, 100%.
Okay. Um, so 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 first, sometimes when it comes to dream recall, is and even Freud brought this up. Sometimes we self-censor. Like, so imagine you're a woman in Victorian age and you're not even supposed to think about sex or whatever, and you have a sexual dream. Well, you censor that sucker so you don't even remember it in the morning, because your belief is sexual dreams are bad, and so they have to be, you know, no memory of them. You got to wipe the slate clean, to hold on to your view of yourself as a good Victorian age woman. So sometimes, uh, Andy, what I would say is sometimes people censor dreams of whatever. It might be anger or rage or this or that or the other. I mean, so here's what I would say. first you got to tell yourself something that there's one gentleman, maybe someone in the audience will remember his name. He said, all dreams come in the way of health and wholeness. All dreams come in the way of health and wholeness. You've just got to start to tell yourself this, that all dreams are coming to help, to provide health and wholeness to you. And so your system is working for you. And so therefore you don't have to censor dreams, you don't have to shut them down or anything. They're communicating valuable stuff to you. All dreams come in the way of health and wholeness. And I think what you'll see is that once you open up the filter, then the dreams will come through. But when you have a bunch of mental or emotional barricades, then you're filtering out dreaming and not having very good dream recall. So you just got to start telling yourself, all dreams are coming in the way of health and wholeness. I allow myself to recall my dreams. All dreams are coming in the way of health and wholeness. I allow myself to recall my dreams. And when viewed from a different perspective, oftentimes that will open up the gates and you'll have more dream recall.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah. So let me see. All dreams come in the way of health and wholeness. Boy, who was that guy? He wrote a book, something like Dreams Where Water Flows Upstream, and boy, what was that guy's name? Anyway, I can't remember his name right now. Sorry. Um, so David writes, Robert, I have a question in regard to dream reality and this reality. There may not be too much difference between the two realities. So when people experience anomalous phenomena in the waking reality, for example, UFOs or Bigfoot or fairies, would this be like in a lucid dream, helping individuals or society to wake up to a larger awareness? And even it's all a dream. Um, so, it's interesting. Um, I think what anomalous phenomenon should tell us is that things are stranger than what we normally think. And it's interesting. I was reading a little bit about Carl Jung's biography the other day. And I think back when he was in his early 20s, he was engaged with seances that were big at the time. And there was one woman in his area who was well known for the extraordinary seances she'd conduct and all. But so what I'm trying to say is that um, because of our beliefs and expectations and socializations, we've kind of stated that certain things we can accept, but then other things outside of acceptance, well, they're just not real, there's no scientific basis, or blah, blah, blah. And it's kind of funny to watch now people beginning to accept the idea that, maybe there's life forms beyond Earth. Maybe there are um, aware individuals, who somehow penetrate into our atmosphere and all that kind of stuff. And there certainly is a lot of evidence towards that effect. But but so what I think in a lot of respects is lucid dreaming can help us first understand that the unconscious, what we call the unconscious, is actually conscious and aware, and that what we think of as the person includes their ego and conscious self, but also their larger awareness as well. I think that would be a stunning transformation for the world of psychology and also our particular viewpoint. Um, so I think that what's also important to understand is just how we help to create our own experience and the process that we take here. Because sometimes when we deny, ignore, repress things, we literally don't see it. But when we start to open our minds, then we'll start to get glimpses of it. And so it shows that the issue really isn't out there so much as it's in our own modes of thinking, such that we deny, ignore, repress things, especially things that we don't understand and possibly fear and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I hope that's helpful. Um, Let me think. For Emmanuel said Andrew Jordan. No, no, it's not Andrew Jordan. I'm going to take a second here and just search really quick. Where water flows upstream, uphill. Okay. Oh my gosh. Sorry. Okay, here we go. Jeremy Taylor. So yeah, everyone, there's a wonderful guy. He's passed away. He was the one who would say, "All dreams come in the way of health and wholeness." And I just put his name in the chat, Jeremy Taylor. I think he wrote 3 or 4 books on dreaming, and really an interesting guy. Really a very nice guy. He's passed away, but he had a lot of great insights into dreaming and used to travel around the U.S. Giving workshops all the time. So anyway, I think I'm going to wrap it up from there. Let me see. I did want to mention that it looks like I'm going to be in Salt Lake City the first weekend of September, giving some talks. And so if anyone out there is in Salt Lake City at a future conference or a future get together, I'll mention what time that's going to be because I don't think the conference organizer has put that out yet. And so I don't want to get ahead of the game. But anyway, I appreciate everyone's interest. I'll be back next month. I know I'm going to be traveling a little bit, so hopefully it'll be the first week of July. If not, then we'll take it from there. But until then, I want to wish everyone the best in their dreaming and also their lucid dreaming. Um, lucid dreams are wonderful, but dreams in and of themselves are wonderful. And so, one of the great ways of getting on the dreaming path is just to fall in love with dreaming. And if you can fall in love with dreaming, then this thing becomes a joy, and it's not work at all. So, all the best to everyone, and I'll see you in a month's time. Adios. Okay, cheerios, everyone. Bye bye.